Hi everyone, my name's Declan McGlynn. Welcome to Friday Forum Live, Point Blank's weekly broadcast bringing you exclusive tutorials, artist interviews and industry insight every Friday live from East London. Today we are joined by Point Blank Creative Director JC Concato to take a look at 5 ways to save your mix. So we are joined by JC today to look at how to fix your mix and some of the problems you might come across. But if you want to learn a lot more about music production, engineering, mastering, and all that good stuff, make sure you check out our courses at pointblanklondon.com. And remember, we are completely live, for better or for worse. So get your questions in for JC and we'll get to them throughout the broadcast. Welcome back.
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Excellent.
Excellent, Declan. Good to be back. So
mixing.
Yeah, mixing.
Problems.
Yes. So we were thinking of doing something about saving your mix. The idea being that often if something is wrong in your mix, it's going to be always a bit of a battle of kind of making it sound as you want.
Yeah,
and it's
there's that old classic, don't try and fix it in the mix.
Yeah,
but that's exactly what we're going to do.
That's exactly. Actually, some of what we want to do today is actually fix it, and then you can start mixing.
Yeah.
If you like. So, we've talked a lot about. I personally think that a mix should be in a stage where, when you push your faders, it's already sounding pretty good,
right.
And then you can start doing your EQ and improving it and do the nice part of it. But there are times in situations, especially with live recording, because people recording at home and things like that. So you get sent stuff to mix and you're like, okay, I've got few problems here before I can even start mixing. So I think that's the idea today, is looking at some plugins that maybe are less usual. They're not the one that we talk all the time about, compressor, reverb, and EQ.
So this is like before the mixing tools get
added.
Yeah,
and it's obviously part of the mixing process, but there are specific tools. There are certain plugins that sometimes do just one specific thing, but just do it really well, and just fixing that. And it's not a funky and exciting plugin, but then you realize how useful it is. And the first one, so we're looking at the UAD plugins mostly today, entirely. And one of the first plugins that we never talk about, and I can see why, because it's not really creative or interesting in any way, but it's this little phase plugin to fix phase problem.
Yeah.
And phase problem obviously happens a lot with live recording when you multi-mic something. Yeah. That's inherent to the fact that mic further away, it's changing the phase relationship. But can happen as well in electronic music, where people layer kicks or snare or synth. The same happen, isn't it? So there's this little plugin which I'm a big fan of, Little Labs. And what it does is you've got a phase adjust. So instead of, normally most desks would have a switch phase button, fully invert or fully.
So it's one or the other.
This one you kind of blend the phase relationship. So that's quite interesting for a start. And one of the things you can do is adjust the delay by a few milliseconds, because often with mics, it's just the fact that the distance is different, therefore you need to correct that. Yeah. And so let's have a listen. I've put it here, we've got an example, and there's a reason why I've taken this example. It's an example of a kind of rock track. Drum recording, drums recorded fully dry, in a living room, couple of 58 by the sound of it.
So very DIY.
Very DIY. But I ended up putting 2 mics on the kick. And if you listen to them, they phase a little bit. And I'm going to actually just hit the kick on their own. You hear there's a little flare. Something's going on in the mid that is not quite right. I mean, partly because this mic needs bad EQing. That's the faulty, but also that's the relationship between both. So if you put that, and I'm activated that, and I've adjusted by a few milliseconds, it takes a while to adjust because I just switch it on. You hear now, it's straight away, it feels a bit thicker. And with phase, you need to trust your ears. It's kind of like, it feels thicker, therefore less cancellation of low frequencies. It feels more together, more compact. That's the job. And straight away.
I guess if you didn't solve that problem early on, you're going to be fighting it for the whole mix.
For the entire mix, you're going to have, I've got this weird resonance going on in my low mid.
Yeah, and you're EQing and you're just trying to figure it out.
Exactly. And you may resolve it eventually, and once the track is going, nobody will know any better. But I again believe that if you can really improve those little things, right at the start. Anything else you're going to do on top of it, additional EQ, compression, whatever, that's really going to start sounding as it should.
Yeah. So basically, just look out for phase issues.
Yeah. Look at the phase issue, especially with phases.
This utility plugin is awesome. But
It's absolutely awesome.
You could just move the waveform as well.
You could move the waveform, but the thing that it does only with that phase thing is quite unique, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one. And there are few functions as well that you can do here, additional function. But so for me, it's an essential tool.
Absolutely.
The next one, I think we could look at another plugin that I've become a huge fan of, and since we're going to keep that plugin, we may as well keep on with that. It's the Ocean Way plugin, the Ocean Way Room plugin.
Ocean Way Studios is a famous studio.
Absolutely.
California?
Yeah, I think it's in LA, but don't quote me for sure.
Yeah. Known for its drum sound and big room.
Yes, absolutely. It's got 2 rooms, Studio 1 and 2. I think it was originally created by Bill Pullman, the owner of Universal Audio. Amazing room sounds. So many artists go there just to have that sound of the room, you know. And again, one of the problems with home recording often is you're going to record in your own room, and live instruments, especially with live instruments. I think here we go with live instrument a bit more. I think that's where the Ocean Way really comes on its own in turning any either fake instruments, fake piano, fake strings, you know, those kind of things. Fake drums, it could be, but also cheaply recorded drums with a problem. Suddenly it's like having an awesome room at your fingertip that you can apply. So it's not far from being a reverb, but I think reverbs do slightly different things. It's a bit of a convolution reverb if you have, but it has a bit more to it than just a straight convolution reverb. So here what I've done is I've assigned it on my 4 tracks of the drums. I've got those drums without it. And now we're going to bring it in. So straight away you've got a room now. And what we mean by the room is that when you record drums or when you record into a large space, whether it's piano or strings, you're always going to mic up the room because it sounds awesome. That's what gives you the body, that's what gives you the environment and all that kind of stuff. In drum sound and strings, the room is probably one of the most important, actually, factor, especially with strings. It's not the mic, the close mic, it's the room mics. So let's have a quick look at the plugins.
I guess if you were recording DIY like this one was done, in a living room, potentially, you might not even want the room.
No.
Never mind being able to capture it. You might actually want to get rid of it completely.
Exactly.
But if in that,
exactly, totally. So that's why you would mic it up closely and think, okay, I'll sort it out later.
Yeah, exactly.
And as much as it's totally valid. And as much as reverb most of the time can do the job, this I think is very, very special. It's quite unique in what it does. So you've got 3 stereo mics for the rooms, what they call the near, the mid, and the far. So as you can have a look, as I mute it, you see them. This one is the close one, and you can select the distance, make them closer, so you can move your mics, which is quite fantastic, really. So,
and this is just...
That's just the room. So here you've got a close. Again, you're keeping the closeness. You're not going for a big stadium rock sound, but you're getting some room.
Even basically. With that very short ambience.
Absolutely. And then you can change the mics. You can have them cardioid or omni. Again, because the way you capture the room, that's how you would usually go about it. Omni is quite often used because you get the entire thing, or cardio. But look, here is a C12, so you could, you've got, it's been all convoluted, recorded, sampled, whatever it's been designed with. They've got also amazing microphone collection over there, so they've used those vintage mics as well. So that's without. Just giving you this. And then obviously you can go a bit further away. That's the mid microphone, and again we can change them. That's the omni.
The omni has a bit more slap back because it's picking up the whole.
Because it's picking up, absolutely, yeah. So here this one worked quite well, this cardioid. On top of it, as you can see, you've got simple low pass, high pass filter, like you would have on your mic. I think that's what I like about it, is feel more like you're miking things. And that's really what I like. And I think today a lot of the stuff we're doing is remiking things or faking a mic, if you like, to bring a bit of realness to it.
Turn your living room into Ocean Way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Kind of.
And that's obviously your big rooms. For this track, something like that would probably work. And what I would tend to do personally, once I'm happy with that, I would probably record the room. And then I would treat it as an audio file, as if it was the microphone in the room next to my dry mic. And then it becomes, and then I can start mixing. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what I would tend to do. So that's one thing that works really well. And if, obviously I made it in a bus, so I could decide to have a bit less kick and just a bit more snare. And the difference is pretty huge.
Yeah.
So, so we're getting something already, and here we're already straight in a positioning of kind of like, okay, if that was the recording that I was given, I'd be kind of like, yeah, okay, I can start working with that. I think I can make it sound good in the mix. So that's Ocean Way. There's other utilities that you can do. I mean, obviously I've done it with drums, but piano, strings. So here I've got a piano sound here, I think, and it takes me to bus 5 here. So yes, here. Is it bus 5? Yeah. So I've got it muted.
The old EXS.
The old EXS. So you know, we've taken, I think, on purpose.
Yeah.
Probably one of the least convincing piano sound, shall we say, but you know, not the best piano sound.
No.
So and as soon as you put the room on it, and what's nice also about this Ocean Way plugin is that you can not only choose the room, and you can see a
photo
of the room, so you can select Studio A or Studio B. But also you can here, let's go back to positioning, they've got those presets that are basically designed, you know, every room is known where the drum sounds better in that room if they're located here, or the piano, so they've done that. So the drums, as you can see, the drums are here. The piano at Ocean Way in that room, it's different location of the room again, so it's going to give you a different vibe. So have a listen. That's with, and that's without. Sounds tiny. Here it brings all the harmonic, the kind of low mid of a piano. You even hear the rumble a little bit, so you probably would need to do something like that, maybe to get rid of you feel the mic, you know, the sound going through the mic stand almost. You see the richness in the low mid. So imagine that with a slightly better piano sample, and you're probably in business. And it will be the same for strings, you know. So if, for example, let's go to our EXS, surely there's some strings in there. Orchestral strings, so we're going to take string ensemble in its most basic form again. And then this time around we're going to change it to strings. So here you see, you hear straight away the difference. Massive difference again. It brings that whole low mid, a little bit of harmonics, space that is not there at all. Especially on purpose, we've taken those samples that are, like we said, not very, very convincing.
There's obviously better samples out there.
Of course. And many of the samples come with their own room now, where it's been recorded, whether it's been recorded by, you know, whatever studios it has been done at. But so for me, the Ocean Way is really quite unique in that sense, compared to any convolution reverb or anything else for that. So those are the two things that, the first two things we wanted to introduce. And again, creating that fake room is going to allow you to start mixing in a better place. You know? The next one we could look at, there's reamping. And in the real world, reamping happens a lot, you know, in the studio where you're given a bass sound that is, maybe there's no amp, so there was only a DI, so you may want to reamp that. It may be a guitar that you're not quite happy with the guitar sound, you're reamping it and trying to bring a different tone into your mix. Whether you do it as a parallel or as an insert, it really depends on all those levels. But there's also creative ways to reamp. You know, I remember working with a producer who used to reamp pretty much all the snares and it would give a crack to it.
Yeah, and by reamping, you mean essentially
sending
running
back
the signal
into an
through
amp, through an amplifier, and often it's a speaker. With the snares, that's even trick where I've seen we would put a snare, actually a speaker, so we would send the snare into the speaker and have the speaker above a real snare drum and mic that up. That would give interesting things. The vibration of the speaker
would re-trigger the snare.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, things like that.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, you know, so there's a lot of ways, and synthesizers, put it into, into an amp, distort it, it gives you some vibe, into a Leslie, whatever. So there's a lot of reason why you would want to do that. Again, we're staying with that track for now. So here I've got a bass amp, a bass part, and it's been DI. It's been recorded DI, quite average recording, not really good.
So this is just straight out of
the bass
into
the sound card or DI, whatever, with no treatment. And obviously that's not quite how you want the bass. Now, when you record bass, often you record both the DI to give you the peak and the precision of the notes, but you're going to record an amp that's going to give you a bit of room, I mean the bottom end, the top, an attitude, whatever it is that you're looking at. And again, UAD have now some really nice simulation of amp, and my favorite amp of all time for bass has always been this one, the SVT Ampeg, and it's there, so I'm very happy. It has some settings that I'm a big fan of, especially that kind of, so I've copied the track, get rid of the DI for now, and I'm going to work on the bass amp, and see the difference. That's the DI. That's.
So you've purposely pulled out a lot of the
yes.
mids.
I mean, what I love about this SVT is you've got a lot of settings. So you see here, you click. Not only you've got the EQ, but you've got those settings that dictate how the bass, the mid, and the treble tone is going to work. So. But this, I'm a big fan of these settings that kind of creates a massive curve in the mid, and this one that gives you this top end.
Yeah.
So that gives you this extra lift, ultra high. So here now I'm getting the bass,
the real fundamental sub.
the low end, and the top end, and in the mix it may not do the trick.
A little bit hollow.
And we're going to need that once the guitar gets in and all that, and the vocals, we're probably going to lose a little bit. And a common technique is to blend them together, blend the DI and the amp. See, straight away it brings a bit. And all that is without compression. After that I can start compressing and doing all my stuff.
I guess that's the whole point of today, is to show that if you get it right initially, or at least, I mean in this case it was just a DI box, but create the original settings, that would be the best in a studio.
Exactly.
And then begin the mix after.
And then exactly.
Otherwise you're fighting with yourself.
You're fighting all the time, absolutely. Straight away it's a lot more convincing. I've got a bass and a drum that is already, you know, if we take it back to how it was, that's where we were. Such in a much better place to start mixing.
Yeah.
You know. So that's one thing you can do with reamping. Here it's to create one that wasn't there in the first place, obviously. On top of it, on the DI after that, there's lots you can do. Often I would have several parallel on bass. I would probably want to have another one on top of that, slightly distorted with some harmonics. Here quickly I've done it on the DI, I haven't paralleled it, but I've put this Vertigo plugin. See,
bit of grit, yes.
A bit of grit on the attacks, and it's really, I mean.
Yeah, sounds good.
So that's one thing.
And we haven't even started yet.
And we haven't started.
Keep reiterating that point.
Exactly. That's the whole point, is that now we can start mixing, and you're going to really take it a lot further than you would have been without doing this kind of stuff, I think. Now, if we open another project about reamping, let's go a bit trancey.
Zedo Music's just asked, is sausage fattener a joke? I assume you mean the plug-in. In which case, no.
No?
It sounds pretty good.
It sounds pretty good, yeah.
It's like a saturator limiter compressor.
All in one.
All in one
It's
box.
basically you're driving it, you push one button, it does something quite unique.
Cheap too.
Yeah.
Might as well check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, no, it sounds, I don't use it, but I know a lot of people who are using it, and it sounds great, whatever works. So here we've got this track. Where is it? I've got it here.
The
Trancy track.
Data Life.
Yes.
Data Life, that's the guys who made it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things I want to show with this track. Another kind of creative use for plugin, because with reamping, a lot of guys into more electronic music side are like, well, it's not really applied for me. And it's
because they think amps aren't
it's
for
guitar.
guitars,
And actually, a lot of producers use amp, pedal guitar, to put their synth through it.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
That's one way to get a very unique sound design approach, quite quick.
Yeah, we had a masterclass with Dave Akumo, who was the Jesse Ware producer, and he did the Invisible stuff, and he has an amazing pedal board with
like a guitar player would have.
Logic through.
Yeah.
And just sits and plays it like an instrument. Really cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. And I think with synth, especially again, virtual synth, that are a bit fake compared to a real one. I think a real one's got something anyway, especially like a Moog or Prophet or all those classics.
Yeah.
But if you take a VST plugin, for me they always lack a little bit of something. So let's look at this track.
Yes.
Yes.
It's Friday.
It's Friday. Let's go for
137.
137 BPM indeed.
Relaxing.
So what I've done here is I'm sending it into an amp. Again, those amp simulation in UAD are really great. See straight away the bottom end that it brought, some richness.
Yeah.
Makes it a bit more interesting, a bit more real. It puts it into and you can drive it as well, so that's obviously free. That's for me straight away a lot more interesting.
Yeah, totally.
So it completely applies, reamping applies, I think, for so many things.
Yeah.
Pretty much it's up to you how creative you want to be and what works. I've tried, I used to love reamping snares and drums into real amp. For some reason, every time I try into a plugin simulation, I'm not quite getting that same effect. And every time I'm kind of like, okay, I'll try something else. But try. You never know what's going to happen. So that was the next thing. Reamping in general really can save things. Can be really used to create interesting tone and edge and uniqueness to your sound. Okay, another one, saving tricks, and let me close that. As well save it.
Of course, save it. It's a hit.
Of course.
It's gonna be on
Now,
Beatport soon.
we've got these tracks, so I'm gonna mute all those two tracks. And another thing with fake thing, there's another plugin that I came across on the UAD that I'm starting to like very much. The Sound Machine Woodworks, and I was intrigued by the name. And it's basically, again, the idea is very much in the remiking a little bit. Again, we're staying in that kind of topic. It's designed for acoustic guitar mostly, but to turn any piezo mic, a piezo mic is something that is a captor on the mic. So instead of being a mic in front and capturing the room, it's kind of a cell mic straight onto some strings. Violin have that. Many electroacoustic guitar have that. So for that, I'm gonna need our friend Yit.
Oh yes.
Who's our dedicated.
Yeah, he's going, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Round of applause. Come on. No one else clapping. You don't have a mic. Can't talk. Just nod.
So again, on purpose, the idea was, this electroacoustic guitar is actually quite okay.
Yeah, it's alright.
But But again, the thing with piezo mic, I think you're like in the room, you don't get as much of the body.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot more of the strings, isn't it? Without everything around that, and an acoustic
Similar
guitar.
to a DI, really.
Yeah, we're getting into that vein again. And what I love about all those plugins that we've shown so far is the simplicity of the interface. There's nothing too fancy. You know, it's straight doing that. And I'm personally, I'm a big believer, I'm a big fan of that. It's kind of, I don't read the manual and just get on with it and see what happens. And then I probably read it occasionally to kind of like, I didn't realize it
I've
could do
wasted
that.
an hour.
I shouldn't have done that. But yeah.
That's part of the fun, though.
So are you okay, Yi, to record a quick part, something, so we can try this plugin, see what it does? Thanks a lot, man.
Oh, there we go. Nice one.
It was beautiful. Thanks a lot. Brilliant, that's great, brilliant. So let's have a listen to it now. You see straight away the problem again. It's what we've said about the DI. It's not about DI and you can EQ it, and we didn't on purpose because we want to. But what I wanted to show again is if you're given something that has been recorded like that, you're going to struggle. It has happened to me many times where I'm kind of like, and you have to give up at some stage. You're kind of like, it will never sound like an acoustic guitar in a room, you know.
Yeah.
And that plugin is surprisingly really, really helping. I've just literally, you know, loaded it for the first time this week. So, but I really like what it can do. So if you look here, it has a default, and it goes through different jumbo guitar, dreadnought, or studio, and you've got this big dial. And then the idea is that you can basically balance between the body and the neck. So often on a guitar you would record with a couple of mics, or sometimes a stereo techniques, but it's not uncommon to record with two mics, one on the body, one on the neck, and you kind of rebalance between your bass and your top end, if you like, the strings. So it kind of recreates that. So let's. And lots of different permutation. And then you can even pan them a little bit if you wanted to. You see I'm on the mono here, so it's not active actually. See? That's your body, and that's your neck. So it's, again, pretty convincing, and you can go jumbo, which are bigger guitar, the biggest.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's quite a big difference.
You know, and I love the simplicity. Because to get that, you would really struggle. I can't see how a combination of reverb, of EQ, and
compression,
many things. But that for me is, again, you're getting your sound in a much better place, and then you can start mixing.
And then you put Ocean Way on it.
And you put Ocean Way on it, and you put your compressor, and you know, a 1073, and you know, and an LA3A or LA2A or whatever it is that you know is going to work, and you're in a good place.
Yeah. Cool.
So that was that as well, and to finish for today. And I've already opened the project that we have for that. Another plugin.
Again, Corey in the mouse says that last strum gave him a big fright. Oh. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Another plugin that I've just recently discovered is part of the Precision series on the UAD, and they're great. I've got to say that I'm a big fan of the Precision for mastering. The EQ, which was apparently modeled. I've heard rumors that it was modeled slightly on the Sontex EQ. That is the Rolls Royce of mastering EQ, but the limiter, the DSR, all that collection within UAD of the Precision, I'm really a big fan. And they've developed one with Bobcats.
The mastering legend.
The mastering legend, Bobcats.
Yeah.
And they've done this plugin called Ambience Recovery. And I've always been intrigued what exactly it is. I understand what it is. It's basically bringing back, if a mix is too dry or the room is a bit lost in there, the transients are too much, it's bringing those kind of in between what what is not there that should have been there in the first place. And again, we've got a couple of examples here from our mastering course. Let's do that one when you start here. I've got it on, so. Okay, so we've got it here at Mix.
Sounds okay?
It sounds okay, you know, but it sounds to me a little bit more lack of room and stuff. And like we do in a mastering course, we show that sometimes you can put a reverb on it. You can put a little bit of reverb, but the problem is affect everything in a certain way.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, this ambience recovery is quite magic what it does. And there's a couple of things I love. Again, I love the interface, the simplicity of it. So let's bring it on. And I'm going to bring back things that I've done with it. So it's a mid-side processing as well. So what you can do here is you've got a gain for the mid and the side. So straight away you can bring that. And if you bring the side, as you know, you're going to make things a bit wider. Which I think was needed on that track because the drums are just poking a little bit. They're just poking in the middle. And in the mastering, I probably would try to address that with compression and EQ a little bit. Have a listen now.
What's last night? And the rabbits pondering if the level died. Sympathy is running dry.
The difference is quite. You see how dry it is? It's very dry.
Yeah.
It's really bringing on the snare, it's bringing on everything.
But it's not, it doesn't sound like you've put reverb on it.
But it doesn't sound like you've put a reverb, or it doesn't sound like you've put an ocean way on it, a room, you know.
Yeah.
It does something in between the transient, exactly what you would want to.
Yeah.
It's quite a magical tool, I think. The more you listen. It's quite magical. Obviously, you've got to go pretty easy on it, but it's, again, when you've got that on mastering and you've got your center track that really needs that. And it works for anything. I think, you know, it's not only acoustic track, again, it works with electronic music. Something just a bit too dry, you know. As part of the mastering processing collection, I think I can see myself starting using it extensively.
Yeah,
it's one of the,
sure.
You know. So those are the kind of 5 plugins we've looked at, or techniques, both, a combination of both that I think if you can bring that in, you really can, after that, start doing the job that you're supposed to do, whether it's mixing, mastering, but you're starting in a better place. Instead of starting here, you're starting here already.
I mean, like we keep saying, this doesn't mean the track's done once you put this on.
No, not at all.
Then you give it character.
It just, after that, you do your job. It's just that sometimes things are not quite there for you to do the best that you can do.
Especially if it's home DIY recording.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's plenty of questions coming in.
Brilliant.
Try and get through as many as we possibly can. PPNMPEN. This is catchy. Does this plugin stereoize the signal? I think he's talking about Ocean Way. So does it create a stereo field as well as?
Well, yeah, because it's 2 mics.
Right.
It's two mics, so it's a stereo. Typically, I mean, you can record a room with 1 mic in mono, but those ones are to get that kind of sense.
That's the whole premise behind Ocean Way.
And if he was talking about recovery as well, yes, a little bit, because you've got the mid-size, you're bringing ambience. Ambience typically are stereo. If it's a reverb, it's just bringing them up a little bit. So yes, it is affecting your imaging. It's making things a little bit wider.
Yeah.
All of that, yes.
Absolutely. Dishal Vakhala is asking, is there any other similar plugin available like Ocean Way Studio? I mean, it's pretty unique.
It's pretty unique. I mean,
because it's that space. So.
It's that pace, exactly. I mean, you could use a convolution reverb, and maybe there are some convolution reverb that have a preset where they sampled Ocean Way rooms, but you won't be able to you won't be able for sure to change the mic, change the positioning within the room, or all those kind of things that are very specific to that plugin. You know, this plugin I think is quite unique. Really.
You can get some of the way there with convolution.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Well, like I said, for me, it's more the interface is a big part of the way I work, and I love the fact that they're very visual, I find.
Yeah, totally. DJ Hitchens asking, please tell me about the consequences due to phase cancellation. So what happens when there's phase cancellation issues?
Well, you're losing your one of the things is how the bottom end is affected. It's phasing, so it's not precise and punchy, and You've got those, especially the low mid. It started from the mid to the bottom end, where you may lose in extreme. It depends on the degree of phase cancellation, but when extreme, you can lose entirely. When extreme, a stereo sound out of phase can be completely cancelled in mono. That is the extreme situation.
I think because low frequencies have longer cycles.
Yeah.
That's why it's more audible.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's more room, more time for them to cancel. And whereas higher frequencies, even if it is cancelling, it's not as audible.
No, although you will have that twirl and that kind of slightly flangy, phasey sound, But on the bottom end, it's quite. You're right, absolutely, it's affecting it, and the low mid. And you've got that ring; it creates that ringy sound. Those kind of really nasty resonance.
Yeah, so look out for that. Ashcom's asking, how can I add distortion to my drums? Which distortion should I use on drums?
It could be anything. I think I'm a big fan of harmonic distortion for drums. So any plugins where you can drive things and it feels like driving an amp or driving a line amp or a mic amp. Or
you could do that in parallel or do it more subtle as an insert.
I would tend to do it in parallel just so that way I can.
Yeah, you get more control.
Yeah.
Zedo Music's asking if I want to make a sound fat in capital letters, what kind of plugins or tools would be useful? It could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things. I mean, and it depends what you mean by fat.
I mean, I think if you're talking about, we're back to harmonic distortion again. It seems like we talk about that a lot. But
yeah, but it's a big thing, isn't it?
Tool.
It is a big tool. It is,
very
and
flexible.
and it's the reality of working with analog gear. Every piece of analog gear gives you some kind of harmonic distortion.
Yeah.
And in the analog world, as much as they were trying to work really hard to diminish it, so it got good quality, transparent.
It's clean.
Now, where we're in the world of digital, where sometimes we are a lot cleaner, especially when we work completely in the box with virtual synths, then we try to bring a bit of that now.
Yeah.
So
we're trying to bring all the flaws back.
Yes,
of the old kit,
absolutely, absolutely.
No Bull Bass Players is asking, is there a must-have bass plugin? It doesn't specify what it's for, but I guess bass amping, bass reamping. Ampeg. There you go. Next. Zedo Music's asking again, this isn't a mixing question, but I've seen producers use only Ozone preset for mastering. Sounds good in commercial, but would that be the only thing done by them? So I guess
I don't
Ozone.
know.
We've got loads of videos on Ozone.
We've got lots of video on Ozone.
Anthony Chapman is the man.
We've got Ozone as well as part of our mastering course, so it's on our computers, the workstations, so students get to work with it.
I mean, in mastering generally, there's never like one-stop solution. So
no.
Ozone's pretty flexible, but
but you can recreate. Yeah, absolutely. But you can recreate anything. Replace the EQ with another EQ, the limiter by another limiter.
Yeah. Check the NAC 89. How much time do you usually spend on a rough mix?
Well, I mean, if you call a rough mix just for the purpose of playing to maybe the label or the manager or the band, none. I literally do it as I work, and I push the faders, and I keep what we call a working balance. But I wouldn't spend more than 30 minutes on the rough mix.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is often you can get some really good things happening. And I've been in a situation where after that in my mix, I was fighting all the time to try to get back some of the stuff that really worked in the rough mix. And it's all about balance, because when you do a rough mix, it's mostly balance.
There's a classic story for Billie Jean where they did 96 mixes and it was number 4 that ended up on the record. Maybe it was number 2. Anyway, it was one of the first 5 that ended up on the record. So
I mean, that is pretty extreme.
Yeah. I think they had a lot of money behind them, though.
I'm sure they had, and it proved to be a good decision.
I think so. Why would I put a compressor on the mix bus?
Slightly out of topic
while
we're talking. But usually you do it to bring things a little bit more together. That kind of glue, gelling things together. Yeah. Usually. That's the first thing.
Yeah, we've probably got time for maybe 2 more questions. Simerge is asking, is it cool to use LA2A on every track, like drum, synth, and guitar, or is there a better choice?
Again, no. I mean, LA2A has some characteristic. It's not the fastest compressor. It's quite warm. The top end is slightly round off, so it's not too bright.
Can't go far wrong with using that, though.
Well, no, you can't. It's the same with an 1176 or LA2A. I would just say the LA2A is probably a bit slow for some use. If you have some peak and fast transient that you need to keep under control, the LA2A probably won't do
Sorry, someone's just asking, can they have a pizza? We can see what we can do. Send us your address.
Yes.
Get on Domino's.
Actually,
there are other pizza companies
can
available.
we have one too?
Yeah, we'll all have pizza after this.
Yeah, we all have pizza for
everyone.
pizza
to wrap
around.
up, so we can eat some pizza. Ravin Acting is asking, all the plugs are good if the man behind are very good? Oh, that's a good point. That's not actually a question, just saying that
Yes.
every plugin is good. You have to know what you're doing.
Yes.
And Icon Audio is
Nowadays-
asking, what
nowadays,
can
I
you
think
put
it's fair to
on
say.
electronic drums to make them sound more professional and give them energy?
What? Sorry.
What can you put on electronic drums to make them sound more professional and give them energy?
I think definitely harmonic distortion in a parallel, kind of trash them, heavy compressor
Yeah.
with slow attacks often, so to get the transient through, so really make them punchy and give that kind of edge and in your face, and parallel to the original one.
Yeah.
Is one way that a lot of people seems to apply.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen this a few times, so definitely have to get it in. Kartik Suluja is asking, mix it on headphones or speakers?
Speakers.
Yeah.
But there are times where you may have to tweak a few things in your own headphones. If you know what you're trusting. I would never finish a mix on headphones. I would always personally finish it on speakers. But I may do some stuff on headphones.
Yeah.
I'm not the best person to talk about that because I don't seem to be able to work on headphones for some reason. Everything I do on headphones sounds a bit wrong on speakers, but it's me. And I know a lot of people, some people it works. So I've got better headphones, and since then I think it has worked for me.
Yeah, nice one. So unfortunately we are out of time for today's FFL. Hopefully you got plenty of inspiration for the weekend, but if you're thirsty for more, make sure you check out our music making courses at pointblanklondon.com. We'll be back next week with an FFL, so we'll see you then. Cheers.